Good evening. I'd like to call to order tonight's school committee meeting with a few amendments to tonight's agenda. Pauline, did you have a field trip you want to add to the agenda?
Oh, you want me to? Yes, absolutely. I'd like to add to the agenda the field trip for the culinary competition, which is happening next week.
Okay.
13th and 14th. We can talk more about it.
Perfect. And then the quiz bowl has postponed for tonight. They asked to come the 21st.
I think, as I mentioned to you, that they didn't have some of their ringers. And
We intimidated them.
yeah, I think they're waiting, hoping that Dr. Lepre won't be at the next meeting.
It's my mad mask.
So I'm concerned because there are going to be a couple of us that won't be here at the next meeting.
I'll be here.
Don't worry.
Oh, so Tim's saying that that's really
All right. So,
Truth be known.
21st.
so may I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
What about the,
Oh yeah, you're right.
I may not be here.
Oh, on the 21st? Okay, well, we'll talk about that.
what about the
All in favor?
community school? Are we doing that?
Yeah.
Yep, so move for that motion.
Second.
Table it
Okay.
All in favor?
when they get down.
Aye.
Okay. So tonight we will start with our self-evaluation. I always love doing the self-evaluation. I always go with my first instinct. And I try not to change it. Do you want me to read through these individually?
You?
All right, well, we'll go through governance. The committee's policies are clear and up to date. We're all in agreement that we strongly agree. The committee has adopted a mission statement. We agree and strongly agree. The committee regularly evaluates its progress relative to the goals and objectives that have been adopted. We have some disagree. Does anyone want to speak to that?
I will admit to being a 3.
Sure. No, that's
I
good.
would say that I think I might find, and this could just be me, but in the busyness of the business that we evaluate every 2 weeks, I don't know that we spend. It might be nice to carve out one meeting quarterly to reflect back on what we set our goals and objectives to be at the start of the year, and just make sure we're in line. We
Check
have
in.
really strong leadership in our superintendent, so it's not because I don't think we're doing what we thought we would do, but I'm just, sometimes I don't remember what we said our goals and objectives were at the start of the year.
I think that's a really good point.
In August, by the time February, January
That's a really good
comes around,
point.
I don't recall them.
So perhaps I can add that to the horizon so that we have that reminder
The parking lot?
at some point.
Yeah.
That way it will
I think that's a really good idea.
go there. Is there a month that might make sense, like a?
You know, if I remember that correctly, we adopt them in September or late August, and we're building
Yep.
somewhere between August and September. So maybe right around February, early March. We do that half-year check-in.
Yeah,
That
maybe
might be
before
nice.
our self-evaluation, that might be a good time, right before we complete our self-evaluation.
Okay.
All right, moving on to the committee refrains from involvement in the administration of the school system. We have agree, strongly agree, and then a disagree. And I think the disagree was me, but I think I misread this. I feel like we have a good relationship with our administration, and I don't like the word refrain from involvement, because I feel like we have a good open relationship with them, and I personally don't feel that we overstep our bounds, but I think it's important that we work with administration.
Yeah, I feel like the nature of the question is almost a little misleading. And
It is.
I think what it's asking is, do we feel like we micromanage?
Right, that's how I read it.
And that's
Right.
how I read it. And so that I agree that we do not.
I agree.
Overstep our bounds in
Right.
terms of, but I think it's the
The
word
wording,
involvement
yes,
is-
and
because we
exactly.
want to be engaged.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
interested and understand and feel free to call them and, be in, and understand what initiatives are happening in the schools, but we don't want to get involved in telling them how to make their decisions or telling Mike how to make his decisions.
That might actually be a good recommendation, just to put back to the state as a suggestion, that this was something that we had a discussion on, and we think that the question or the wording is a little misleading.
And actually, we do this self-evaluation, so if we want to change the wording of that,
That's what
we're
I was
not,
gonna say.
we're not
Okay.
bound by their template.
Okay.
And I think we should take a look at that, because this is really very generic.
It
and bare
is.
bones,
It
and I
is.
was expecting something quite different, I have to say. I know
Yeah.
that's part of my hesitation for filling it out,
Yeah.
for that very reason.
Well, then, maybe you want to give it to the policy committee to take a look at, tweak it, if that makes sense,
That
so
does
that we
make
can
sense.
I
have a
think
little
so.
better.
I think so.
um,
This has been standard every year since I've been on the committee. It's been the same,
That we
yeah.
adopted
Yeah.
from Musk. I think
Okay.
when we talked about adding this into our cycle, it was just a generic template we took
Okay.
from Musk. But
See, this question would not have come up pre-Education Reform Act of 1993 because
Yep.
the school committee spent more time in the superintendent's office generally than the superintendent did, and came out with a number of bad decisions along the way. So, I mean, I think, I don't know, I felt that, strongly agreed, we didn't involve ourselves, because that to me really means sticking your nose in and suggesting to Mike what he should do. And I don't think any of us do that.
No, I don't think we do either.
I mean, but it's a very different situation from many years ago.
Okay.
And Jen, if I might just make a recommendation, maybe instead of going through each question, anyone
Sure.
that seems like has a significant highlight.
Yeah, I think those were the only ones that we had a disagree until we get to community relations.
Yep.
And so maybe I'll just read that one, and if anybody wants to comment on any of the other ones. But the other, community relations, the committee has a public relations plan for the school system. We were all in agreement and one disagree. So maybe that's something we need to work on as well.
I would just add that in my time here, I know that we have a template for a plan, and that it's been something on part of our strategic plan that we keep wanting to get to and do something more substantive with. And this, I think, dates back to when Jenny and Robin were on the board with us. And I'm just not sure that an actionable plan has ever risen to the top of the priority list, given all the competing things. And then when we went with the building, that sort of took over the priority of
Right.
the communication. And from a communication committee, I believe the website
It did,
redevelopment
right.
got built.
That's
So I think that in fairness, we don't really know if we have, like, maybe sometimes we don't call it a plan, but there are objectives being met that we're just not referring back to.
And I think I seem to remember when we were discussing this last year, that the actual information that was going out around the building and all of the work that was going out in that committee was really sort of focused on sharing the information, and that was our priority.
Yeah. I think when we revisit the strategic plan this summer, that needs to sort of percolate up in that, in the strategic plan as one of the activities.
I think that's a good idea because we started, I remember, working on a communications, and then out of that did come the website.
Yep.
Which was a phenomenal effort.
Right, and then it was focused more towards the building of the new school, which is necessary, so.
And just to add that I think the consensus has long since been, there are some districts that are larger that actually have maybe a communications director. And so knowing that a more substantive, robust communications plan would land on the lap of somebody else's to-do list, and administration has had a lot of other competing priorities. So.
I just would add that, and I think you've all touched on it, it doesn't mean that we haven't been communicating
Right.
and we haven't been putting out PR, but that there is not a clear plan that really lays all of that out. And we're sort of that in-between district. We've grown a lot, but we're not the big district that has, you know, a person who, as you say, is designated for that.
Okay. Does anyone have any other comments about our self-evaluation that you want to bring up for discussion?
I would just say that one member noted that they didn't know if all the constituencies of the school district are involved in strategic planning process, and that's probably a function of this being somewhat of a poor question, in that the timing has been such that perhaps some of the newest members wouldn't know who was involved in the planning process
Right.
and what the approach has been to that. So,
And I'll respond to that. That is exactly the thing, because we're on the end of the strategic
We are.
plan.
We are.
Yeah.
And I think the constituents of the school district, for me, haven't been identified, so that I know if they've been involved, that type of thing. So that's another reason some of these questions, a little bit more meat would be very helpful when you're asked the questions.
Right. Well, this is good. This is something that we can work on in the policy subcommittee. And it's good, you being a new member, will really be able to add into that. That'll be great. Thank you, Zona. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Moving on to the Nantucket School and Town, nope, sorry. Where are we?
Yes.
The community school.
could I make a motion, Jen, to table this discussion? It's something that Caitlin and I have been working on jointly, and
Okay.
we are going to push pause on the discussion of
Okay.
the Park and Rec MOU
All right.
between the town of Nantucket and the school for now, so I think presenting it to the school committee is a little
Premature.
premature.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the field trip.
You should actually take a vote on that
A vote?
motion,
Yeah.
a second
Okay.
and a
I'll
motion on that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Field trip?
Yes, we have a field trip that we've done each year. This year, the culinary state competition is in Worcester, Massachusetts, and Mr. Proch is going to bring, I think, 3 students, and we have, and Nancy Miller is coming out of retirement to be the chaperone with Tom,
is
which is
fantastic.
wonderful. And you know, she's
She's
done
going to
it.
Spain, too.
I know she's done it for a couple of years, and God bless her, because it's really
nice.
a help to have that second set of adult hands.
She
and
enjoys it so
she
much.
does. She obviously.
That is fantastic.
So,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the field trip for the culinary students.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Very exciting. March 13th, 14th, that's coming up. Okay. That was a very short agenda list. Any comments from the public?
I have a question on the MOU between the town of Nantucket and community school. Are they discussing that at selectmen tomorrow night?
No.
They're not. Originally, March 8th was the...
No, originally March 8th is a presentation of my department.
Okay.
There was some confusion about there being a
When do you
presentation.
think you'll be...
I can't speak to that, I don't know.
All right, moving on to committee discussions and votes to be taken.
I'd just like to make a note, we're going to recuse myself from the
Sure.
next 2 votes.
May I have a motion to approve the to approve the gift donation from Egan Maritime Institute to CPS gift account for maritime studies in the amount of $27,105?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
May I have a vote to approve the gift donation from Egan Maritime Institute to the CPS gift account for maritime studies field trips in the amount of $62?
So moved.
excuse me, if I may, I looked at that. It is $624.
$624.
I think the agenda was written incorrectly, and I apologize, but if you look at the support information,
Okay.
that was $624. So, sorry.
In the amount of $624.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
May I have a vote to approve gift donation from Verna Gonzalez and Remain Nantucket to NES large portable projector screen?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And this is very exciting. A vote of approval on nomination for hire of Michelle Brady, the Director of Special Services. Start date July 1st, 2017.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Congratulations.
This is very
And if I
exciting.
can just add, because the public may not be looking at what you have, we are very fortunate. We've been very fortunate to have Nina Lucario and then Nancy Miller for 6 years, and she retired this year. And as you know, it was a bit of a challenge. We thought we had somebody, and they backed out at the last minute. And then we have Sheila Reardon as an interim, and I think we've been very fortunate to have an experienced special ed director as the interim. And Michelle Brady is presently the director of special services in Mashpee. So once again, we're bringing an experienced director in a critical position for the community. And I think what I like about Michelle's background is that she's been adjunct faculty at Framingham State. She has worked in guidance. She's been a social worker, and so she brings a wealth of information. And she is a graduate of Mount Holyoke, and then did her postgraduate work at Leslie. So I am delighted, and it's the first thing I'm going to do at the end of the meeting is call her and
Great.
thank her.
Congratulations again.
It's very exciting. May I have a motion to approve February 7th, 2017 meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion, does anyone have any questions on the transfers and invoices? May I have a motion to approve transfers and invoices?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Superintendent's report, enrollment update.
Yes, I provided that in a subsequent email for you. You can see that the numbers are up 4 students over February, and then I think it was over probably 8 over last year at this time. We have the withdrawals and entries so that you can sort of monitor that. We're still hovering around the 720 number at the elementary school and 335 at the middle school and almost 540 at the high school. So,
Can you speak to the withdrawals?
yeah, I think we had a number of withdrawals of immigrant students. Whether that was in response, I don't know. But we've also had entries of, I'd say, a like number of immigrant students. So, and then there's the occasional moving out because of housing. I think those 6, I believe 2, as I recall, Zona, were housing on Nantucket.
Because it's a real concern, I was wondering if maybe you could put a footnote on your report from now on to just note the reasons for the withdrawals and possibly the entries, just so we can see if housing is making up a bigger number than the immigrants or vice versa, or what's involved. I
Yeah.
just think it gives us a better picture of what's going on in our community.
I will certainly try to do that. Sometimes we don't know the reason. Somebody just
Stop showing.
stops showing, and then we get a request from another school district. But sure, we can do that. The nursery school is something else that I had mentioned to you that we were looking into, and I'm sure when you read the INM, you read about some things that Caitlin and I have been talking about. And as we speak, there is a survey out in the community to try to find out what the depth of daycare issues are for, originally we were looking at 3 and 4-year-olds, but the survey expands it beyond that because, as we know, there are people in the community who need daycare for 1 and 2-year-olds. So we're getting some information. We'll report back to you when that survey has run its course. If our hypothesis is correct, it will show us that we need even more options for daycare and preschool than what the community has now. And if that is the case, we would be looking at possibly opening a nursery school out at the community schools, what is now the ECC, out at the community school out by the airport, because the ECC is coming into the elementary school, which we're delighted about. But that would give that space for a 3-year-old, a program for 3-year-olds possibly.
Under the community school.
Yeah. So we're going to take a look. I don't know what the degree of that need is. We're delighted that Wee Whalers is going to open back up. We found that out, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think, Caitlin. And I think they're hiring somebody who has run daycares off island to come here and run that program. So that's terrific. But we think that even with that, there is still a greater need. We do not want to compete with our private, preschools and daycares, but if the numbers indicate that people need even more options, then we have the possibility of opening that.
So it's sort of re-looking at the model that we had with Magic Ears, perhaps.
Sort of.
Fee-based programs.
Sort of, yep.
I know I saw somewhere, maybe it was in the newspaper, that it was a discussion of possibly just investigating about Head Start.
Well, so when you look at before school, and I won't use the word preschool right now, before public school, which is kindergarten, you can be looking at different populations. Typically, the 4-year-olds are what we refer to as preschool. And there are several preschools in the community. And we have 3 preschool teachers at NES right now. They serve primarily children with special needs, but we try to balance those programs so that they have the models of other children. There are different words that are used. Sometimes you'll hear the word typical, although I don't know that there is such a thing as a typical 4-year-old or human being. Thank you. But because that serves probably 60% special needs children and 40%, that's usually the percentage that we like to try to keep. There are still many, many children who are in private preschools, and that's wonderful. There are many children who can't afford those private schools, and there are some children that aren't even on a waiting list because they can't afford it. We would love to bring Head Start to the island. That's something that's been talked about for quite a few years. I don't know if we'll pull it off, but it's a federally subsidized program for families who, are economically below a certain threshold. And I think that would be terrific. We know that generally out of 100 children every year, and it's not always 100 coming into kindergarten, but probably 30, sometimes as many as 40 haven't been in any preschool program. That's why we run our summer boost, to try to help. We would love to get those children into a subsidized or for-fee preschool. So my efforts at the elementary school would be to try to get some private providers for the 4-year-olds, for the preschools, to use our space. That may happen, it may not, I don't know. And then beyond the 4-year-olds would be, a nursery school for 3-year-olds. And then, again, people argue we need programs for 1 and 2-year-olds. I don't necessarily feel that that is the public schools' role. It may or may not be a role for community school, though.
I think we've got stronger numbers. I forget exactly, is it 42% of low-income families that we're presenting right now with our free and reduced lunch?
It's lower than that, but it's grown, it's
High
doubled.
30s.
It's doubled in, I'd say, the last 5 years.
Oh, more than double.
So back when we had a pilot program of Head Start here, and Kristen Wurgis ran it, and it was a home-based program. And at that time, I think our low-income or free and reduced percentage was only around 4 or 5%. We knew it wasn't an accurate number,
Yeah.
but that was the number that we were actually able to document. And Head Start was willing to come, and they did come, and they surveyed our sites, and they were willing to fund a part-time home-based program, which was great, and we ran it, and it was filled with teen parents. It was all first-time parents under 21, and we had 10 parents in that program. The problem was with that is that it was not the traditional Head Start program. So all of these families were needing to work. They needed to go to work. They couldn't afford the childcare. And the home-based program meant that somebody would come in and visit their home after they came back and returned from their workday and make, I think some of the curriculum was to make musical instruments, to talk about nutrition and other parenting pieces. And even though our parents participated because they knew that if we could keep that going, we might have a chance of getting funded a full program, it did not support their needs, because the last thing they needed was to have somebody coming in and they felt like they had, and even Kristen is lovely, it wasn't filling their needs. But so we have that history.
Do you remember what year that was, Pauline?
I would
won't-
say probably early 2005, 2006 maybe.
Okay, so maybe I'll have Caitlin follow up with you and.
Can't remember Mel's last name. Her mother actually used to run our cafeteria here.
Who's that?
Mel, it was her name, but her daughter is Mel. And I think she's still over on the Cape.
Huh.
I don't know. I don't know if I've got any more files there in your office,
Yep.
but we can talk about it. But I just want to let you know we did have that history, and
Right, and so what we would be looking for is not a home-based, because I think we realize that's not going to
It
work.
wasn't what the families needed.
So, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can develop.
That would be wonderful.
And then on the horizon, we'll move the Quiz Bowl to the 21st.
So can I make mention, Zona might not be at the meeting. I'm not here, and Pauline is not here.
So maybe we won't meet on the 21st.
I think that's
Why not just bring
fine.
them in and we'll hammer them?
Tim, you're very confident.
Although,
Any benefit to meeting on the 28th? Making the meeting up before the 4th. I'm just thinking about the superintendent evaluation.
Right.
Maybe some of the other things we have to do. I don't know if they have to be done.
well, you're supposed to complete, I don't know that you have to report on the superintendent's evaluation, but you're supposed to complete it by the end of March.
So
So
can I have a little bit of a timeline that I've been working on. So we have Mike's self-evaluation tonight.
Yep.
Admin's supposed to turn theirs in by Thursday.
Yep.
And are they going to make copies, have a copy, 5 of us?
I am collecting them, or they're being collected in my office. Not all of them have made 5 copies,
Okay.
though, so somebody will need to come in
I can come,
and,
No, you cannot. I'm going to just say that you cannot.
yeah, I can. Okay, so
Only because I happen to know Jen's personal schedule on Thursday is a nightmare.
thank you, that's kind of you. So Thursday, though, the evaluations will be available to be picked up
I can come in on Friday and make copies
on Friday.
on Friday morning. So that
Okay,
by
perfect.
Friday
So then
afternoon, they're
Friday-
available for pickup.
Everyone's available to pick theirs up. If we can all return them to Logan by the 24th. And then Tim and myself are going to meet that last week
So we return our personal evaluations on
to Logan
March.
by the 24th, Friday the 24th. And then Tim and I are going to meet the last week of March to collate everyone's comments. We'll get them out to you. And then hopefully we'll be presenting them on April 4th
Great.
with a very light agenda on the 4th because we're meeting at 5.
Okay.
So can the agenda focus on your evaluation?
It can. I'm just looking at,
The 21st.
so you're talking about April 4th. Mm-hmm. Most of those are pretty small things. I'm just thinking about the quiz bowl. Mm-hmm. You want me to push that to the 2nd April?
Will they
think
be
so.
okay with that?
I
Yeah,
don't think we're going to have time to,
yeah.
Because remember, we're meeting at 5 o'clock on
Right.
April 4th.
right, with the hopes to
right.
To be
somewhere for 6 o'clock.
5:45, 5:50,
The school
yeah.
choice participation is just a quick vote. That's
Okay.
not a long discussion. I can move the dropout graduation rate to the 2nd meeting, if that's what you want.
Okay.
So are we not going to have a March 28th meeting? Is that what we're saying?
It was at March 21st, and
Yeah,
Well, I thought that she mentioned about
neither, I
moving it.
guess.
Yeah.
So when's our second meeting in April? Because I see it's school vacation on the 18th,
We can move it to,
the 25th.
well, you could do the 11th or the 25th. You could have them back-to-back in the week, or you could have them separated. I might suggest back-to-back.
That wasn't where I was going.
I-
That's okay. That's why I was keeping
I
quiet.
had a 50-50 chance.
That's
I'm fine with either.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Any
matter
other
to me.
comments,
Doesn't matter to me.
suggestions? Doesn't matter. Is it easier for you to do the 25th?
It's fine. No.
Okay, so we'll plan back to back, April
Okay, so.
April 11th,
Fourth
and that way we're not pushing off the quiz bowl too long.
So we'll do the quiz bowl on the 11th.
Okay.
Give me time to study.
All right.
You don't need it.
And Mike, I will come around 9 o'clock on Friday morning to make photocopies.
Yep,
Thank you
Probably by
very
10 o'clock.
much.
That
Thank
will be
you.
ready to go.
okay.
Thank you very much. The school committee and task force assignments, will we still do that on the 4th?
We can, I think,
4th is election day?
well, there are, I'm trying to think of when the school committee, will it change, I think is the question.
Right. And we'll want to meet ahead of time and discuss
Right, so you may want to push that.
new
off to the second
assignments.
one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So are we all in agreement with the timeline for the superintendent's evaluation?
Yes.
Okay.
And where are we dropping them off?
Logan,
Back to
please.
Logan?
Mhm, by the 24th. All right. Thank you.
Like, do you have any update on the sports teams? Anything going on?
Well, let's see, actually, yes, the swim team did an amazing job on both the boys and the girls' swim teams. I think the girls came in 5th in the state, which is their highest placement. So, and we have some boys to watch in the future as well. Jim Pignato does a great job with that program. And then girls basketball had to, I think, win 3 out of their last 4 to make the playoffs. And then not only did they make the playoffs, they won their first round game on the road. I imagine you were there.
I wasn't.
You weren't, I'm sorry. And then they played Cohasset in the second round and played them very tough, a very good team, but went down to defeat. And then the boys, basketball had a great run until they learned what basketball is like in the inner city. And
They did get
Chris Morey said that there wasn't a boy over 5'9", but they were fast and could shoot, and they poured it on us. So a little humble pie. And then the hockey team is still going. They play tomorrow night. Just an amazing overtime
Oh my gosh.
win.
saw that go
Yeah.
on Facebook.
So very exciting, and they're undefeated. It gets harder every level you go up, but it'll be a season for them to remember in any case. So, and the athletic director is licking his chops about softball season. So, he had them out there putting up the batting cage today.
Oh my goodness. It is cold.
Yeah.
It is cold.
Remember what Belichick said, no days off.
Is,
I was out on the soccer field yesterday. It was bitter.
were you?
It was cold. Yeah, turf field. Any other questions, comments?
I want to bring this up here and just looking for guidance to see, I had mentioned here at one of the meetings that I wanted to have the policy committee look at school suspensions in school and detention. I looked at our policies, I also looked at the handbook, and I don't know that my questions or concerns are necessarily in the policy, it's probably more in the handbook. So I'm looking for guidance to see, I just would like to have a conversation and understand in a clearer way how we're treating students. My feeling is, and I'll just put it out there, I think sometimes we are separating students out of school who need to be in school the most. And so I just want to have a conversation, and I'd like your guidance as to where best to have that, because
I think then you should put it on the agenda if it's not a policy, if it's not specific to policy. I'll just say in passing, and maybe say it again when we talk, we try very hard to use in-school suspension. I know that they use it at all 3 schools. We don't have a lot of suspensions in the elementary school. But sometimes out of school, we have to resort to out of school. Sometimes, I mean, if a student really wants to be out of school, he or she will be out of school. Because if you have in school and they're not going to behave in school suspension, the only recourse is to have them go out of school. So you'll hear that, I would imagine. But all 3 schools try to have in school. They do it differently. When it's in an elementary school, it's usually in the principal or assistant principal's office in a desk. Sometimes in the student support center. In the high school, you have Mr. Kessler, who often has the in-school. Sometimes a middle school student will come up to the high school. Oftentimes a middle school student will be in the office of Donna Johnson if they have in-school suspension. So it doesn't do it justice because the other principals the principals aren't here to speak to it, but I am very confident that they try very hard. But if a kid ditches detentions and or ditches in-school suspension, you don't have a lot of
I guess I just feel
options.
like sometimes for the kids who get out of school suspension, it's not really a punishment because there's not always a support back in the home that is going to have them have any consequences. And I also feel that there are some students who, particularly I'm thinking of students who live alone, who are supporting themselves, and they are, for whatever reason, tardy often, and they get detention, and after so many detentions, I think they get an out-of-school suspension, and I just feel like, is there something we can put in place to help these students? rather than just having them just not show up for a day because they know they're going to get a detention and end up getting out of school. So that's kind of the areas that I'm hearing.
Those are good
and
points.
I'm just concerned because I feel like some of the students, all students need to be in school. But are we really supporting those kids when they have an out-of-school suspension, I guess is the crux of my concern.
I'll put it on a future agenda. I believe we do. I believe we try very hard. But I think it's worthy of having it on the agenda and having you hear from the principals about
That'd
that.
be great. Thank you.
All right, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Bye.
Thank you. Our next meeting will be April 4th.